After 30 years of loyalty and blood sweat service to the company, I helped build from nothing. The new COO, barely out of business school, called me into his office and said, "You're too old to keep up. We need younger blood." Just like that. No ceremony. No thank you. But what he didn't know was retirement wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of his reckoning. My name is Jonathan Grant. For 30 years, I was a cornerstone of Halverson Dynamics, a one small logistics firm that we turned into a multi-million-dollar industry leader. I joined the company when we were working out a rented basement and stayed through the dark years, sleeping under my desk, pulling double shifts, and risking my own savings to keep the lights on. I wasn't just an employee. I was the beating heart of the company. But all that loyalty meant nothing when the board brought in Alex Mercer, the new chief operating officer. He was young, sleek, and sharp with words that sounded like they came straight from an MBA textbook. The type who smiled too wide and said, "With all due respect," before sticking a knife in your back. From the day he stepped into the office, I felt the shift. The casual dismissals during meetings. The way he ignored my input on strategic calls. He was slowly sidelining me. Then one afternoon, I was summoned to his glass-walled office. I could tell from the tone of his voice over the intercom that something was off. "Jonathan," he said, not even bothering to look up from his tablet, "we've been reviewing our leadership structure, and frankly, it's time for a change. We need younger blood with more digital agility." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You've done good work. No one's denying that," he said, still not looking up. "But your methods are outdated." "The board agrees. We're offering you an early retirement package. Generous, I might add." Generous? I had sacrificed 3 decades, missed birthdays, anniversaries, even my wife's funeral because of a cross-country logistics failure. And this boy in a tailored suit thought he could shoo me away like an old dog? I didn't take the folder he handed me. I stood there, stone-faced. "You're making a mistake," I said. He looked up finally, eyes cold. "The only mistake would be letting the past hold us back." I walked out of that room feeling like a ghost. Everyone on the floor knew. They avoided my gaze. Some whispered. Others offered forced smiles. I packed my things in silence, each item a reminder of my life's work. At home, I sat on my porch and stared at the sunset, the retirement offer unopened on the table beside me. My son called, asking what I'd do next. I said I didn't know, but deep down, I knew exactly what I'd do. I'd watch, I'd wait, and when the moment came, I would bring Alex Mercer to his knees. Retirement didn't suit me, not because I couldn't handle rest, but because I wasn't built to sit still while a parasite like Alex Mercer ruined everything I helped build. For the first few weeks, I laid low. I needed to know what I was up against. I began reaching out, quietly, old colleagues, vendors, even a few junior staff members who still respected me. Not everyone liked Alex. His brash decisions, his obsession with data over people, and his arrogant belief that experience was a liability had already started to fracture the internal culture. Halverson Dynamics was no longer the company we built. It was a power toy in Alex's hands. I learned that he'd scrapped our long-standing vendor contracts in favor of trendy new partnerships with startup energy. That might sound innovative on paper, but these new vendors were unstable, inexperienced, and most importantly, cheap. He was shaving costs, inflating short-term profits to impress the board. Classic smokescreen tactics. I also learned that he'd been rewriting our core logistics algorithm, the one I helped design, with the help of an outside tech firm. No transparency, no vetting, just a rush job to modernize operations. That's when I realized Alex wasn't just pushing me out. He was erasing me, erasing everything we built. But here's the part that really lit the fire in me. One of my old assistants, Maya, confided that Alex had told the board I was mentally slowing down and risked becoming a liability. That was slander. And worse, it was personal. So I started planning. I reconnected with Greg Tillman, a cybersecurity consultant I once mentored. We'd lost touch over the years, but Greg owed me. Back when he was just getting started, I'd helped secure his first contract through Halverson. When I explained the situation, he didn't hesitate. "I'm in," he said. "Let's show that punk what experience really looks like." Over the next few weeks, Greg and I set up a digital shadow network. Using legal backdoors from the legacy systems I helped install, we monitored the company's internal communications, vendor activity, and board memos. Nothing invasive, just eyes on the ground. And then we struck gold. One evening, Greg called. "John, you're going to want to see this." He pulled up a series of flagged emails between Alex and the CEO of the external tech firm he'd hired. They weren't just updating the system. They were inflating development costs, charging Halverson twice the actual rate, and siphoning the rest into an offshore account. It was textbook embezzlement. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding, not from rage, but clarity. Alex Mercer wasn't just incompetent. He was corrupt. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. But we couldn't go to the board. Not yet. Alex had them eating out of his hand, with quarterly profit spikes and flashy tech demos. We needed undeniable, indisputable proof. We needed him to trap himself in a lie too big to walk back from. And I knew just how to bait the trap. It was time to go back into the lion's den, not as prey, but as a hunter. By now, I knew Alex Mercer's game inside out. He was a climber, addicted to optics. If it looked shiny and profitable, he ran toward it, often without reading the fine print. That was going to be his downfall. But first, I needed to bait the perfect trap. I spent a week assembling a ghost company. Vertex Chain Solutions, an AI-powered logistics consulting firm that existed only on paper and pixels. With Greg's help, we built a convincing digital footprint, a slick website, curated social media accounts, fake client testimonials, even a few trade publication write-ups seeded through freelance content mills. On the surface, Vertex looked like the next big disruptor in supply chain automation. I sent a strategic cold email from Vertex to Halverson Dynamics Innovation Department, proposing a revolutionary blockchain-integrated logistics prediction model. It sounded like technical sorcery, but more importantly, it sounded just flashy enough to get Alex's attention. And it worked. Within 48 hours, Alex had his assistant request a meeting. What followed was a Zoom call where I appeared as Victor Gray, the so-called founder of Vertex. I wore glasses, added a slight British accent, and filtered the video just enough to obscure my face. Greg monitored the call while feeding me real-time data from Halverson's operations to sound convincing. Alex was hooked within 10 minutes. "This could give us a serious edge against our competitors," he said, practically drooling. "But this predictive model, you said it requires a direct integration with our central logistics system?" "Correct," I answered, "but it's entirely encrypted. We've already done it with 3 other major logistics firms. Off the record, of course. Pilot programs. Confidentiality isn't a problem," he said. "How soon can we start?" "Gotcha. Now here's where things got delicious. Vertex's system didn't do anything. It was a shell. But once Alex gave us access to Halverson's infrastructure under a shady, undocumented pilot contract, we could watch every corner of his operation, including the offshore money trail he was trying to hide. But I needed him to go all in. That's when I offered him something irresistible. "We're willing to offer you exclusive regional licensing if the integration goes smoothly, but it would need to come directly from executive authorization. No legal review. We can't risk leaks." Alex barely blinked. "I'll handle it myself." He thought he was cutting corners for a deal that would make him look like a genius. What he was really doing was committing corporate fraud on record. 3 days later, Vertex was quietly plugged into Halverson systems. And that's when everything began to unravel. Greg's trackers lit up like a Christmas tree. Alex had been funneling inflated invoices through not one, but 3 shell firms tied to him and his old college roommate. One of them was even registered under his mother's name. Every move, every false invoice, every shady signature. We now had it all, but we couldn't take it public yet. If we released this too soon, Alex would spin it, blame the firm, or worse, burn everything down. No, this needed to end in public, in front of the board, with no escape. I had to get back inside the building, and I knew exactly how to do it. I reached out to Carla Jennings, the board chairwoman, and one of the few people who still remembered what I did for the company. I told her I had critical information about Halverson's future that needed to be shared in person. I didn't say more. I didn't have to. Carla called an emergency board meeting the following Friday. She said I'd be attending as a special consultant. Alex had no idea I was coming. And by the time I walked into that boardroom, I would be holding the blade of justice, ready to drop it. Friday arrived like thunder. I wore the same Navy suit I had on the day Alex forced me into retirement. Except this time, I wasn't walking in defeated. I was walking in prepared. As I stepped through the polished glass doors of Halverson Dynamics, I could feel the stares. Whispers spread like wildfire. The old man was back, but not with a box in his hands, with purpose in his stride. Carla greeted me outside the boardroom with a quiet nod. "Are you sure about this, Jonathan?" she asked, her voice low. "Positive," I replied, "but let him hang himself first. Give him the floor." She smiled slightly. "Then let's watch the show." Inside the room, the board members were already seated, polished, pressed, and ready for another quarterly update from their golden boy. Alex stood at the head of the table, beaming. He hadn't noticed me yet. "Before we begin," Carla said, tapping her pen, "Jonathan Grant will be joining us today. He has some strategic concerns about recent operational changes." Alex's face froze, just for a second, but I saw it. "Jonathan," he said, feigning warmth, "didn't expect to see you here." I smiled, took a seat. "That's the thing about expectations, Alex. They don't always pan out." He forced a chuckle and launched into his presentation. Slides filled with jargon, predictive analytics, efficiency gains, revenue curves that look suspiciously smooth. "Thanks to our partnership with Vertex Chain Solutions," he bragged, "we're projecting a 25% increase in system optimization by Q3. That was my cue. I leaned forward. "You mentioned Vertex. Can we talk about that?" Alex turned, trying to keep his composure. "Of course. Cutting-edge firm. Private pilot program. Very discreet." "Discreet," I echoed, "as in off-the-books discreet? No legal review? No IT security clearance?" Silence. Carla raised an eyebrow. I continued, "How did a third-party firm get access to Halverson's entire logistics architecture without board approval? Unless someone bypassed protocol." Alex straightened his tie. It was a calculated risk. Minimal exposure. "Interesting," I said, nodding to Greg, who was waiting in the hall. He entered with a laptop and began projecting the evidence on the boardroom screen. Wire transfers, invoice duplicates, vendor shell companies, payment trails leading offshore. The embezzlement laid bare. Board members gasped. Carla's pen stopped tapping. One member murmured, "This can't be real." "Oh, but it is," I said. "We traced everything. Every signature. Every false contract. Including payments to a shell firm under the name Lorraine Mercer, his mother." Alex stood, his voice trembling. "This is insane. You hacked us." "No," Carla cut in sharply. "You hacked us. You exposed this company. You used our trust, our systems, and our money." Security had already been quietly called. As the guards entered the room, Alex's facade shattered. He went from arrogant to pleading in seconds. "This is a setup. He's lying. He's bitter." "Then explain the contracts," I said. "Explain the offshore accounts. Explain why every single internal system logged your personal executive access, authorizing the integration." He had no answers. The guards approached, and Alex took one last desperate look around the room. But no one stood for him. No one defended him. Not this time. As he was escorted out, Carla turned to me. "What do you want, Jonathan?" "Justice," I said, "and to make sure this company never falls into hands like his again." She nodded. "Then help us fix it." Alex Mercer was out, but the damage he left behind lingered like a virus in Halverson's bloodstream. Within 24 hours of the board meeting, a full internal audit was launched. Carla Jennings asked me to serve as a temporary strategic advisor, a title that meant one thing: clean up the mess, rebuild trust, and guide the company back from the edge. But I had no illusions. I wasn't returning to my old desk, nor did I want to. That chapter was over. I didn't need the title or the corner office. I had something far more valuable now. Control from the shadows. First order of business. Freeze all vendor accounts tied to Mercer's network. Then, using the data Greg and I gathered, we helped legal begin proceedings to reclaim the siphoned funds. Thanks to his sloppiness, most of the money was traceable and recoverable. Second, fix morale. The staff was shaken. They'd been under the rule of a boy king obsessed with buzzwords and ego. I scheduled a company-wide town hall. Not a press release, not a corporate memo, just me, standing in the open floor of our logistics center, speaking from the gut. I stood in this building 30 years ago. I began. I've swept floors, missed family milestones, and poured myself into making Halverson Dynamics more than just a business, but a home for people who believe in hard work. That trust was broken, but not by all of us, and we will rebuild. They clapped. Some cried. And I knew right then they were still with me. Meanwhile, the board had a problem. Halverson needed a new COO. The obvious question was whether I'd take it. I declined. Give it to someone younger, I said. Just not someone arrogant. Let me choose them. And I did. I promoted Maya, my former assistant, who'd been one of the few brave enough to speak up about Alex in the early days. She was sharp, level-headed, and understood the soul of the company better than any outsider. She was stunned when I told her. Me? But why me? Because you've seen what bad leadership looks like, and you stayed anyway. That's strength. She stepped into the role with grace, and together, we began rebuilding Halverson's fractured core. But the story wasn't over yet. A month later, I received a letter from Alex's lawyer. He was claiming I had defamed him and conducted unauthorized surveillance. It was a weak attempt to shift blame. My lawyers responded with 100 pages of legal proof, timelines, and financial records. He never filed again. However, I had one last move, something more symbolic than strategic. I called a press conference. Carla, Maya, and the board stood behind me. Reporters from every major business outlet attended, eager to hear how a legacy executive took down his own corrupt successor. I told them everything. The forced retirement, the lies, the trap we set, the proof we uncovered. I named Alex Mercer as the man who tried to cannibalize a company from the inside out, and how his arrogance underestimated one thing: the value of experience. The story went viral. Retired executive outsmarts corrupt COO in corporate sting. Old guard delivers final blow in Halverson corruption scandal. The media painted me as a hero, but I didn't do it for fame. I did it because when someone tries to erase your life's work, you don't walk away. You fight, and if you're smart, you win. 6 months had passed since I walked back into Halverson Dynamics and pulled the mask off Alex Mercer. In that time, the company had not only survived, it had thrived. Revenues were steady, vendor trust was restored, and more importantly, the culture was healing. It felt less like a business and more like a family again. Maya had proven to be a brilliant COO. She led with humility and transparency, taking every lesson from the Alex Mercer disaster as a blueprint for what not to become. Her leadership inspired a new generation of managers who value both innovation and integrity, something Halverson had been missing. As for me, I never returned to a full-time role. I didn't need to. I became an executive mentor, quietly advising rising leaders across several industries, helping others avoid the traps I'd lived through. I gave talks on ethics and experience, mentored college grads, and even started writing a book, The Quiet Blade, Outmaneuvering Betrayal in Business. And Alex, he wasn't so lucky. After the internal audit wrapped, the company filed a civil lawsuit against him. He was forced to return every penny he'd stolen, and then some. His assets were frozen, his reputation shattered. No company in the industry would touch him. His LinkedIn went dark. His speaking engagements were canceled. He became a cautionary tale in MBA ethics courses. Justice had been served, not through violence, not through vengeance, but with precision and patience. One crisp fall afternoon, I returned to Halverson headquarters one last time. I walked the halls as a guest now, older, grayer, but still sharp. Employees I never even met thanked me as I passed. Some asked for advice. Others just smiled. I stopped in front of the conference room, the very one where Alex had tried to bury me. The door was open now. A new team huddled inside, brainstorming solutions for the company's next innovation wave. Not one of them looked like me, and that was the point. I didn't need to lead the charge anymore. I had cleared the path, and now the right people were walking it. Before I left the building, I ran into Maya near the elevators. "We're naming the new mentorship program after you," she said. "Thought you should know." I smiled. "You don't have to do that." "We want to," she said, "because when the system failed, you didn't." As I walked out of the building for the last time, I felt no anger, no bitterness, just peace. Because in the end, I didn't just reclaim my dignity. I restored the soul of the company I gave my life to. And to the man who thought he could throw me away like an outdated file, "You were right about one thing, Alex. I am old, but you forgot something. Old lions don't roar. They wait, and then they strike.